Some doors only open when you have nothing left to lose. Maya Collins stood outside Mercy Ridge Hospital in Chicago, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold her phone. The late November wind cut through her thin coat, carrying the smell of rain and exhaust from passing cars. Inside her, another kind of storm was building. She was 37 weeks pregnant, her due date just days away, and she had already been turned away once that morning from a clinic that required a deposit she could not afford. Her bank account showed exactly $12.40. Not enough for anything in a city like this, not even a single prescription bottle of pain relief. She looked down at her phone again, staring at the list of missed calls she could not return. No family, no partner, no safety net. Just silence where support was supposed to be. A sharp contraction made her inhale quickly, her free hand pressing against her stomach as she leaned slightly against the cold brick wall. "Please wait a little longer," she whispered to the baby she was carrying, her voice trembling but soft. "I am trying. I promise I am trying." The hospital doors opened behind her, and a nurse stepped out, glancing briefly in her direction before looking away. Maya had already been told the policy. No insurance clearance, no admission. The words had felt colder than the winter air. She shifted her weight, trying to stay upright, trying not to cry in public again. That had become a habit lately. Crying quietly where no one could judge her. Inside Mercy Ridge, floors above her, Ethan Caldwell stood in silence behind a glass wall overlooking the city. 38 years old, billionaire CEO of Caldwell Enterprises, a man whose name rarely needed introduction in business circles. His suit was perfectly tailored, his posture controlled, his expression unreadable. Yet something about the view outside did not hold his attention tonight. His assistant spoke carefully from behind him. "Sir, the gala committee is confirming your attendance tonight at the Astor Grand Hotel. It is a required appearance for the merger discussions." Ethan did not respond immediately. His gaze remained fixed on the street below, where traffic moved like restless currents of light. Then, without warning, he saw her. A woman standing alone near the hospital entrance, clearly struggling, her body slightly bent forward as if she was fighting something invisible. Something in the way she held herself made him pause. Not sympathy, not curiosity, something sharper. Recognition of distress without needing explanation. "Cancel the next 30 minutes, Ethan said calmly. His voice carried the kind of authority that did not invite questions. His assistant hesitated. "Sir, the board meeting. I said cancel it," he repeated, quieter this time. "Final." Within minutes, Ethan was already outside, stepping down the hospital entrance stairs. The cold air hit him, but he barely noticed it. He moved toward her without hurry, yet with certainty, as if he already knew this moment was not accidental. Maya looked up when she heard footsteps approaching. She instinctively tightened her grip on her bag. Expensive shoes stopped a few feet from her. Then a man's voice, steady and low. "You are going to need medical attention tonight." She blinked, confused. "I am fine." The words came out weak even to her own ears. Another contraction hit her, sharper this time. Her breath caught. Ethan noticed immediately. No panic. No dramatic reaction. Just assessment. "You are not fine," he said simply. A brief silence followed. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out his phone. "Come with me." Maya shook her head. "I do not even know who you are." He looked at her then, really looked, and for a fraction of a second something unreadable passed through his expression. "Ethan Caldwell," he said. Her breath stalled. Even she had heard that name. She had seen it on news headlines, corporate magazines, investor reports she used to skim when she still had a job. "I cannot accept help from a stranger," she said quickly, though her voice wavered. Ethan did not argue. He simply stepped slightly closer, lowering his voice. "Then do not accept it from a stranger. Accept it from someone who understands timing matters more than pride." Another contraction forced Maya to close her eyes. When she opened them again, the world felt narrower, harder to hold on to. Ethan noticed the shift instantly. "You are coming with me," he said, not as a question, but as a decision already made. A black car pulled up quietly to the curb as if it had been waiting for him the entire time. Maya hesitated, torn between instinct and survival. Then her knees weakened slightly. The cold, the pain, the exhaustion from days without proper rest all caught up at once. Ethan reached out, not touching her, just steadying the space between them. "No one else has to know," he said. That was the moment she finally moved. Not because she trusted him, but because she had run out of ways not to. The car door closed with a quiet finality that made Maya's breath feel even tighter than the pain already did. The interior was warm, almost unreal compared to the freezing sidewalk she had just left behind. Leather seats, soft lighting, and the faint scent of cedar filled the space, but none of it eased the pressure building inside her chest. Ethan Caldwell sat beside her without speaking for the first few seconds. He was not looking at her, only forward, as if the situation had already been mentally mapped out and categorized. Maya pressed one hand against her stomach and tried to regulate her breathing. "Where are you taking me?" she asked finally, her voice strained but controlled. Ethan did not turn his head. "Private medical wing at Caldwell Medical Center," he replied calmly. "They are already preparing for you." Maya blinked, confusion cutting through her pain. "I cannot afford a private hospital." "You are not paying," he said simply. That answer made her go silent. The car moved smoothly through the night streets of Chicago, cutting through traffic with quiet efficiency. Maya stared out the window, watching city lights blur past like fragments of a life she was no longer part of. Her thoughts kept circling back to the same question. Why would someone like him do this for her? She had learned long ago that kindness in her world always came with conditions. A few minutes passed before another contraction hit, stronger than the last. She inhaled sharply, her fingers gripping the edge of the seat. Ethan finally turned his head then, observing her without panic. "Only focus. How far apart are they?" he asked. "I do not know," she admitted. "They started earlier today, but I ignored them because I thought it was just stress." His jaw tightened slightly. That was a mistake. There was no judgment in his tone, only certainty. The car pulled into a secured underground entrance. Within seconds, medical staff were already waiting. Doors opened quickly. Voices became distant instructions. Maya was guided onto a wheelchair before she could fully process what was happening. Ethan walked beside her, not rushing, not interfering, but never leaving her side. Inside the private medical wing, everything felt sharper. Clean white lights, quiet hallways, controlled movement. A doctor approached immediately. "We were informed of a priority admission." "Miss Collins?" Maya nodded weakly. "Yes." The doctor glanced briefly at Ethan, recognition flickering in his expression. "Mr. Caldwell, we did not expect you here personally." "Proceed," Ethan said. "One word. No explanation needed." Maya was moved into an examination room. Machines were attached. Numbers appeared on monitors. The world around her narrowed again into sensation and sound. She heard medical terms she barely understood. Cervical progress, fetal monitoring, stability checks. Ethan remained just outside the immediate treatment area, visible through the glass partition. He had not left. That fact unsettled her more than she expected. A nurse adjusted in 4-line and spoke gently. "You are going to be okay. You just arrived in time." Maya let out a slow breath, though it shook halfway through. After a few minutes, the doctor stepped out briefly to speak with Ethan. Maya could not hear everything, but she saw Ethan's expression change for the first time. Not panic, not fear, something quieter, focused intensity. "We will stabilize her," the doctor said. "But she should not be alone tonight. Stress levels are elevated." Ethan nodded once. "She will not be." The doctor hesitated. "Are you family?" A pause followed, a fraction of silence that felt heavier than it should have. "For tonight," Ethan replied. Then he walked back into the room. Maya watched him approach, uncertainty rising again. "You do not have to stay," she said softly. "I do not know you." Ethan stopped near the foot of the bed. His voice lowered slightly. "You know enough. You are here. That is what matters." Another contraction passed through her, and she closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them again, he was still there, watching, not in a way that felt invasive but in a way that felt controlled, as if he was measuring every possible outcome before it could happen. "Why are you doing this?" she asked again, weaker this time. Ethan did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward the monitor, then back at her. "Because timing does not wait for explanations," he said. Maya did not fully understand what he meant, but for the first time that night she felt slightly less alone. The monitors in the private medical room emitted a steady rhythm that filled the silence between breaths. Maya lay still on the hospital bed, her face paler than before, her hair slightly damp from sweat. The contractions had not stopped, but they had become more controlled under medical supervision. Still, every few minutes her body reminded her that time was no longer theoretical. It was immediate. It was happening. Ethan Caldwell stood near the window for a moment, looking down at the city lights below. Chicago stretched endlessly in every direction, alive and indifferent. His phone vibrated once in his pocket, then again. He ignored it. After a moment he turned back toward Maya. A nurse adjusted the monitor near her bed and stepped away quietly. "Your heart rate is stabilizing," the nurse said gently. "But we are going to keep you here under observation." Maya nodded faintly. "How long?" she asked. "Until delivery," the nurse replied. The word settled heavily in the room. Ethan did not react outwardly, but something in his posture shifted slightly, as if the situation had moved from temporary intervention to permanent responsibility. Maya looked at him then, studying him more carefully than before. The man who had appeared at the hospital entrance like a decision already made still felt like a contradiction she could not solve. "You did not answer my question earlier," she said quietly. "Why are you really here?" Ethan did not respond immediately. He moved closer to the bedside, stopping at a respectful distance. "Because you were going to be alone," he said simply. Maya frowned slightly. "People are alone every day." "Not like this," he replied. His tone was calm but firm. Maya looked away, unsure how to respond to that. A nurse entered with a clipboard and reviewed her chart. "We will begin continuous monitoring. If labor progresses, we will be ready for delivery at any moment." The nurse paused briefly, then glanced at Ethan. "You are listed as emergency contact?" Maya opened her mouth to respond, but Ethan spoke first. "Yes." The answer was immediate. No hesitation. The nurse nodded and left. Maya turned her head slightly toward him. "You cannot just decide that." Ethan met her gaze evenly. "I did not decide for you. I decided for the situation." That distinction did not fully satisfy her, but exhaustion made argument difficult. Another contraction passed through her, shorter but sharper. She closed her eyes briefly, breathing through it. Ethan noticed the shift in her breathing pattern. "How often now?" he asked. 15 minutes, she said quietly. He nodded once as if mentally tracking data. Minutes passed. The room remained controlled, almost too controlled. Machines hummed softly. Lights stayed constant. Outside the glass, medical staff moved efficiently but quietly, as if the world had been narrowed down to this one room. Maya drifted in and out of awareness. At one point, she heard Ethan speaking on the phone in the hallway, his voice low and precise. "Postpone the gala attendance. I will not be present." A pause. No further discussion. He ended the call before any response could follow. When he returned, Maya was watching him again. "You were supposed to go somewhere tonight," she said. Ethan stopped near the foot of her bed. "It can wait." "It sounds important," she insisted weakly. "Everything sounds important until it is not," he replied. That answer lingered in the air longer than expected. Maya shifted slightly, her hand resting over her stomach. "You do not even know me," she said. "No," Ethan agreed. "But I know what matters right now." She studied him for a long moment. There was no visible attempt to comfort her with empty reassurance. No forced warmth. Only presence. That was somehow more disarming than anything else. A doctor entered shortly after, reviewing the latest readings. "We are approaching early labor progression," he said. "It may still take several hours, but we need to prepare for delivery readiness." Maya's breath caught slightly. Ethan noticed immediately. "Are you in pain?" he asked. "I am okay," she lied automatically. The doctor looked between them. "Pain management can be adjusted if needed." Maya hesitated. "I do not want anything that could affect the baby." The doctor nodded. "Understood." Ethan stepped slightly closer. "You do not have to make decisions alone," he said quietly. Maya looked at him, something shifting behind her tired expression. That is exactly what I have been doing for a long time, she said. For the first time, Ethan did not respond immediately. The silence between them felt different now. Not empty. Waited. Then he said something unexpected. Not tonight. Maya closed her eyes again, not sure whether to believe him or not. But for now, she did not have the strength to argue. The corridor outside the private medical suite felt colder than it had earlier in the night. Time had stretched in a strange way, losing its normal structure. Inside the room, Maya Collins lay still but alert, her eyes half open as she listened to the steady rhythm of machines tracking her condition. Each sound felt louder now, more meaningful, like every beep was counting down toward something irreversible. Ethan Caldwell stood near the door for a moment, speaking quietly with the doctor who had just stepped out. We are seeing consistent progression, the doctor said. But she is not yet in active delivery. It could still take hours. Ethan nodded once. Keep everything stable. No emotion in his voice. Just control. The doctor left. Ethan returned to the room. Maya turned her head slightly toward him. You keep saying everything is stable, she said softly. But nothing about this feels stable. Ethan did not deny it. He simply walked closer and stopped beside her bed. Stability is not a feeling, he said. It is a condition. Maya gave a faint, tired breath that was almost a laugh. That sounds like something a CEO would say. It is something someone says when they cannot afford uncertainty, he replied. A silence followed. Not uncomfortable, just heavy. Maya shifted slightly, her hand resting over her stomach again. I keep thinking about what happens after, she admitted. After tonight. Ethan looked at her for a moment. You are thinking too far ahead. I have to, she said quietly. That is how I survive. Those words seemed to land differently in the room. Ethan did not respond immediately. Instead, he turned slightly toward the glass wall, as if organizing his thoughts. Outside, a nurse moved quickly down the hallway, then another. The energy in the medical wing had subtly changed. Preparation was increasing. Tell me something, Ethan said finally. Do you have anyone who can come after this? Maya hesitated. Her eyes lowered. No, one word. Simple. Final. Ethan did not ask follow-up questions. He seemed to understand that answers like that were not expanded easily. A nurse entered again, checking monitors and adjusting 4 lines. We are going to move her into a delivery-ready room soon, she said. We want everything prepared in advance. Maya nodded weakly. The nurse left. The door closed softly behind her. The room felt even quieter after that. Ethan remained standing where he was, watching Maya in silence for a moment longer than necessary. Then he spoke. You are not going through this without support. Maya turned her head slightly. You already said that, she whispered. People say a lot of things. I am not people, Ethan replied. That made her pause. Not because it was dramatic. Because it was calm. Absolute. Another contraction moved through her body, stronger than before. Maya inhaled sharply, her fingers tightening against the bed sheets. Ethan noticed immediately. Now? He asked. She nodded faintly. A nurse returned quickly after pressing the call button. The room shifted into motion again. Adjustments. Measurements. Calm urgency. Ethan stepped slightly back to give space, but he did not leave. He stayed within view. Maya noticed that too. Through the discomfort, through the tightening waves of pain, she kept seeing him there. Not pacing. Not distracted. Just present. A doctor entered and reviewed the monitor. We are very close, he said. This is early active labor. We will need to stay focused from this point forward. Maya closed her eyes briefly. Ethan spoke again. How long now? The doctor hesitated. It is unpredictable. Could be 1 hour. Could be several. Ethan nodded once. Understood. Maya opened her eyes again. You do not have to stay for all of this, she said quietly. Ethan looked at her directly. I know. That answer surprised her slightly. He was not insisting out of obligation. He was choosing. Another contraction passed. Maya exhaled slowly, trying to steady herself. The nurse adjusted the monitors again. You are doing well, she said gently. Ethan stepped closer to the side of the bed. Not intrusive. Just near enough that his presence was clear. Look at me, he said calmly. Maya hesitated, then met his eyes. You are not alone in this moment, he said. It was not emotional. It was not comforting in a traditional sense. It was simply stated. Direct. Real. Maya did not respond, but her breathing steadied slightly after that. The room continued its controlled rhythm. Machines. Footsteps outside. Quiet instructions. And Ethan Caldwell standing still, as if refusing to let the night move forward without him anchored in it. The hospital room had settled into a tense kind of stillness, the kind that existed only before something significant was about to change. Maya Collins lay back against the elevated bed, her breathing uneven but controlled as she tried to stay present through each wave of discomfort. The monitors beside her continued their steady rhythm, each sound marking time in a way that felt more personal than mechanical now. Ethan Caldwell stood near the window again, but his attention was no longer outside. It had returned fully to the room. A nurse adjusted Maya's foreline quietly and checked the monitor. We are entering active labor, she said calmly. It may progress quickly from here. Maya closed her eyes for a brief moment, her fingers tightening against the sheet. Ethan turned immediately. What does quickly mean in this case? He asked. The nurse met his gaze. Minutes to hours. It depends on the body's response. Ethan nodded once. No visible reaction, but something in his stance sharpened, as if the abstract timeline had suddenly become real. Maya opened her eyes again and looked at him. You do not have to keep asking them questions, she said softly. It will not change anything. Ethan looked at her directly. It changes preparation, he replied. Another contraction passed through her, stronger than before. Maya inhaled sharply, her head pressing back into the pillow. The nurse moved quickly, adjusting settings on the monitor. You are doing well, she said. Stay with your breathing. Ethan stepped closer without hesitation. Focus on my voice, he said. Maya gave a faint nod, though it was difficult to concentrate. I am trying, she whispered. Minutes passed in waves. The room became a rhythm of instructions, breathing, and controlled urgency. At one point, Maya's hand slipped slightly from the edge of the bed. Without thinking, Ethan reached out and steadied it. It was brief, no lingering touch, but it was enough for her to notice. You are still here, she said quietly, almost as if surprised by it herself. Yes, Ethan replied simply. A doctor entered again, reviewing the latest readings. His expression remained professional but focused. We are progressing faster than expected, he said. We may need to prepare for delivery sooner than planned. Maya's breath caught slightly at the words. Ethan noticed immediately. Is there a complication? He asked. The doctor shook his head. Not currently, but we are approaching a critical phase. The room shifted again into motion. Additional staff arrived quietly. Equipment was prepared. Everything became more deliberate, more precise. Maya stared at the ceiling for a moment, her voice low. I did not think it would happen like this. Ethan looked at her. Most things do not happen the way we expect, he said. Maya let out a slow breath. That is not comforting. It is not meant to be, he replied. Another contraction passed, stronger now. Maya closed her eyes tightly, her body tensing. Ethan stayed where he was, watching closely, not moving away. The nurse guided her breathing again. You are almost there, she said gently. Ethan stepped slightly closer to the bedside. Look at me, he said. Maya opened her eyes, though they were tired. You are doing exactly what you need to do right now, he continued. Nothing more. Nothing less. Maya studied him for a long moment. You talk like everything is under control, she said quietly. It is not, Ethan replied. That honesty surprised her. The room remained active but not chaotic. Controlled urgency filled the space. Machines beeped steadily. Voices stayed calm but firm. Outside the glass, the hospital continued moving, unaware of the moment unfolding inside this single room. A nurse checked the monitors again and nodded to the doctor. We are very close, she said. Ethan's expression did not change, but his attention sharpened further. Maya gripped the sheets again, her breathing uneven. I am scared, she admitted suddenly, her voice quieter than before. Ethan paused for a moment. Not dismissive. Not rushed. Then he spoke. That is normal, he said. Maya gave a faint, exhausted nod. I do not want to do this alone, she whispered. Ethan did not hesitate this time. You are not alone, he said. And for the first time since the night began, Maya did not argue with that statement. The room had shifted into a sharper kind of urgency now, the kind that erased all background noise except what mattered. Maya Collins lay back on the hospital bed, her breathing uneven, her face damp with exhaustion as her body moved through a rhythm she could no longer control or predict. Every few minutes, pain came in stronger waves, forcing her to grip the sheets until her knuckles turned pale. The monitors beside her blinked steadily, almost indifferent to the intensity of what she was experiencing. Ethan Caldwell stood close now, no longer near the window. He was positioned where he could see everything at once, the doctors, the monitors, and her. A nurse adjusted the equipment quickly and spoke with calm precision. We are entering the final stage of active labor. Once transition begins, delivery will follow shortly after. Maya let out a shallow breath, her eyes briefly closing as another contraction hit. I did not think it would be like this, she whispered. Ethan's gaze remained steady. No one ever does, he said. There was no attempt to soften the truth, only presence behind the words. A doctor leaned in, checking readings, then nodded to the team. We are very close now. I need everyone ready. The room responded instantly. Movement increased but remained controlled. Each person knew their role. Maya turned her head slightly toward Ethan, her voice weaker now. If I cannot do this. She stopped, breathing through another wave of pain. Ethan stepped closer immediately. You are not thinking like that, he said. Maya gave a faint shake of her head. I do not have a choice. Ethan's expression tightened slightly, not in frustration but in focus. You already are doing it, he replied. A nurse guided Maya's breathing again, her voice steady. Short breaths. Stay with me. Maya tried to follow, but her body was already pushing her beyond simple instruction. Ethan watched closely, then spoke in a lower tone. Listen to her. Not the pain. Maya exhaled slowly, trying to anchor herself. Time became irregular again. Minutes blurred. The room narrowed to sound, breath, and motion. Then the shift came suddenly. The doctor stepped forward with immediate attention. We are entering transition now. Prepare for delivery. The atmosphere changed instantly. Maya's breathing became more intense. Her hands tightened again, and she closed her eyes briefly as the sensation overwhelmed her. Ethan did not move away. He stayed exactly where he was, close enough for her to hear him without needing to search. Stay with me, he said calmly. Maya's voice broke slightly. I am trying. The medical team moved with precision now. Instructions became shorter. Every action had purpose. The nurse looked at Maya directly. You are doing exactly what your body is supposed to do. Ethan's voice followed immediately after, steady and low. You are stronger than this moment. Maya opened her eyes briefly and looked at him. There was no dramatic reassurance in his expression, only certainty. That steadiness grounded her more than she expected. Another wave hit harder than before. Maya cried out softly, then clenched her jaw as she pushed through it. The doctor gave a quick nod. Good. Keep going. You are very close. Ethan stepped slightly closer, his voice now quieter but firm. Do not stop. You are almost there. Maya shook her head faintly, overwhelmed. I cannot, she began. Ethan interrupted gently but firmly. Yes, you can. The room tightened into focus. Every sound sharpened. Every movement became synchronized. Then, after what felt like an extended moment suspended in time, the doctor's voice changed. I see progress. Continue exactly like this. Maya's breath trembled. Her body was exhausted beyond words, but she continued. Ethan did not look away. He stayed with her through every second, as if refusing to let the moment become something she had to face alone. The nurse's voice softened slightly. You are almost there. Maya's eyes closed again, but she nodded faintly. Ethan's voice followed one last time, close and steady. You are not alone. And this time Maya believed it enough to keep going. The entire room had narrowed into a single rhythm now. Breath, pressure, voice, movement. Maya Collins clung to each instruction like it was the only thing keeping her anchored to reality. Her face was pale, damp with exhaustion, her hands gripping the sheets as another wave of intensity moved through her body. The hospital lights felt too bright now, almost distant, as if the world outside this moment no longer existed. Ethan Caldwell had not moved from her side. Not once. His presence had become a fixed point in the chaos, steady and unchanging, while everything else shifted rapidly around them. The medical team was fully engaged now, their voices precise, controlled, urgent without panic. "You are doing exactly what you need to do," the doctor said calmly. "Stay focused." Maya's breathing broke slightly as she tried to follow the rhythm. "I cannot hold it," she whispered, her voice strained. Ethan leaned in closer immediately, his tone firm but steady. "You are not holding it alone," he said. Maya turned her head slightly toward him, her eyes filled with exhaustion and doubt. "It feels like too much," she admitted. "It is supposed to feel like that," he replied. "It means it is working." Another contraction hit harder than the last, and Maya's body tensed completely. A quiet sound escaped her, and her grip tightened instantly. The nurse adjusted the monitor and spoke with calm urgency. "You are very close now. Just a little longer." Ethan did not look away. "Do not stop," he said softly. "You are almost there." Maya shook her head faintly, overwhelmed. "I do not know if I can," she whispered. Ethan's expression did not change, but his voice lowered slightly. "You are already doing it," he said again. "There is no turning back now." The doctor stepped closer, checking readings quickly. "We are at full progression. This is it. Focus now." The room tightened further. Every movement became sharper, every instruction more precise. Maya's breath became irregular, her body pushed beyond exhaustion. Ethan remained exactly where he was, his attention locked on her, unwavering. "Look at me," he said quietly. Maya opened her eyes briefly. "You are not alone in this moment," he continued. "You are right here. You are safe." Something in his voice steadied her slightly. Not comfort, not reassurance in the traditional sense, but certainty, the kind that did not shift no matter what happened next. The nurse spoke again, her voice gentle but firm. "When you feel it, follow through. You are ready." Maya nodded faintly, though her strength was visibly fading. Ethan stepped a fraction closer. "Stay with it," he said. "Do not let go now." Maya's voice broke slightly. "I am trying," she said. Ethan nodded once. "I know." A long moment followed. The room held its breath with her. Then the doctor's voice changed. Sharper. Focused. "We are there. Now." The energy in the room shifted instantly. Maya's body responded, and she gasped softly as everything converged into a single point of effort. Ethan did not move. He stayed anchored beside her, his presence constant, as if refusing to let the moment become something she faced without support. The nurse counted softly. The doctor gave precise instructions. And through it all, Maya held on, pushed forward, refusing to stop even when her strength faltered. Ethan's voice came once more, low and steady. "You are almost there." And in that final moment before everything changed, Maya believed him enough to keep going. The room had reached a point where time no longer felt linear. It stretched, compressed, and broke into fragments of breath and sound. Maya Collins lay on the hospital bed with every muscle in her body locked in exhaustion and effort. Her hair clung to her forehead. Her lips parted as she tried to follow the rhythm the nurse was guiding her through. Every instruction now felt like something she had to reach for through thick air. Ethan Caldwell stood exactly where he had been for what felt like an eternity. Close enough to be present. Steady enough to be trusted. The doctor's voice cut through the tension with precision. "We are there. This is the final stage. Do not stop now." Maya's breath trembled as she nodded faintly, her entire body shaking with the intensity of the moment. "I cannot tell if I am doing it right," she whispered, her voice barely holding together. Ethan stepped in closer immediately, his tone calm but absolute. "You are doing exactly what you are supposed to be doing," he said. "Do not doubt that now." Another wave hit, stronger than anything before it. Maya's grip tightened so hard her fingers went pale. A quiet sound escaped her as she fought through it. The nurse leaned in, her voice steady. "You are almost there. Stay with me." Ethan did not move away. His attention remained fixed on Maya, unbroken. "Look at me," he said softly. Maya forced her eyes open, meeting his gaze through the strain. "You are not alone in this," he continued. "Not for a single second." Something about his voice cut through the panic, not removing the pain, but anchoring her inside it. The doctor gave a sharp nod. "Now, push." The room shifted instantly. Every person moved in perfect coordination. The atmosphere tightened into complete focus. Maya cried out softly as her body responded, every ounce of strength pushing forward against exhaustion that had been building for hours. Ethan stayed beside her, his presence unshaken. "Stay with it," he said. "Do not stop." Maya shook her head slightly, overwhelmed. "It is too much," she whispered. Ethan's voice lowered, steady and firm. "You are stronger than this moment," he said. "Do not give it power." Another wave passed through her, and she gasped sharply, tears forming at the edges of her eyes. The nurse counted quietly, guiding her through every second. "You are doing it perfectly," she said. "Keep going." Ethan leaned slightly closer, his voice almost quiet now. "You are almost there," he said again. "Do not let go now." Maya's breathing broke, but she did not stop. Her entire body trembled under the weight of exhaustion and effort. The room seemed to narrow further, everything converging into a single point of urgency. Then the doctor's voice changed. Sharper. Immediate. "We see progress. Do not stop." Ethan did not look away. "That is it," he said firmly. "Keep going." Maya let out a broken breath, her strength fading and returning in waves she could not control. "I cannot hold it," she whispered again, her voice weaker now. Ethan shook his head slightly. "You are not holding it," he said. "You are bringing it through." The words landed differently this time. Not comforting. Not soft. Absolute. Maya closed her eyes briefly, then forced them open again. Another wave hit, stronger than before, and her entire body responded. The nurse's voice sharpened with urgency. "We are right there. Do not stop now." Ethan's voice followed immediately, close and steady. "You are not alone," he said. "I am right here." The room held its breath with her. Every second stretched, every sound heightened. And through it all, Maya kept going, not because the pain lessened, but because she was no longer carrying it in silence. The entire room had collapsed into a single point of urgency. No background noise. No awareness of anything beyond breath, motion, and command. Maya Collins lay back on the hospital bed, her body trembling from exhaustion that had gone far beyond anything she had ever experienced before. Every muscle felt like it had reached its limit, yet she was still moving forward through sheer will and instinct. Ethan Caldwell stood exactly where he had been, close enough that she could hear his voice without searching for it. The doctor's tone sharpened instantly. "We are at delivery. Do not stop. This is it." Maya's breath broke as she nodded faintly, her entire body straining under the intensity. "I cannot tell if I am doing it right," she whispered, her voice thin and unsteady. Ethan leaned closer immediately, his expression unchanged but his voice firm. "You are not supposed to think right now," he said. "You are supposed to continue." Another wave hit her hard, and Maya let out a broken breath as she gripped the sheets tighter. The nurse moved quickly, her voice steady and focused. "Stay with me. You are doing exactly what you need to do." Ethan did not step away for a single second. "You are almost there," he said quietly. "Do not stop now." Maya shook her head slightly, overwhelmed. "It feels like too much," she admitted through strained breath. Ethan's gaze stayed locked on her. "It is supposed to feel like that," he replied. "That means it is working." The doctor stepped in closer, eyes focused on the monitor. "We are there. Keep going." The room tightened further. Every movement became precise, every instruction immediate. Maya's body trembled as she pushed through another wave, her strength fading and returning in uneven bursts. Ethan remained steady beside her, his presence unbroken. "Look at me," he said. Maya forced her eyes open again, meeting his gaze through exhaustion and pain. "You are not alone in this moment," he continued. "You are right here. You are safe. Something in his voice anchored her again, not removing the pain, but giving it structure. The nurse's voice came in quickly. That is it. Keep going. You are very close now. Ethan's tone lowered, calm but absolute. Do not stop, he said. You are almost there. Maya's breath shook as she nodded faintly, her body pushing past what she thought was possible. The room felt smaller now, everything concentrated into a single unrelenting focus. Then the doctor's voice changed sharply. Now. We are there. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Every person in the room moved in synchronized urgency. Maya cried out softly as her body responded fully, every remaining ounce of strength directed into one final effort. Ethan did not move away. He stayed exactly where he was, steady and unwavering. Stay with it, he said. Do not let go now. Maya shook her head weakly, overwhelmed. I cannot, she whispered. Ethan's voice did not rise. It steadied even more. Yes, you can, he said. You are already doing it. The nurse counted softly, guiding her through each moment. Almost there, she said. Just a little more. Ethan leaned slightly closer, his voice now barely above a whisper. You are not alone, he said again. I am right here. The room held its breath with her. Every sound, every movement, every second focused into a single point of completion. And through all of it, Maya kept going. The room had fallen into a different kind of silence now. Not empty, not calm, but heavy with completion, like the entire space was holding its breath after something irreversible had just happened. Maya Collins lay back on the hospital bed, her body completely drained, her face pale with exhaustion that went deeper than physical effort. Her eyes were half closed, her breathing uneven, as the last echoes of effort faded from her body. The monitors beside her no longer carried urgency. Their rhythm had shifted into something steadier, something final. Ethan Caldwell stood where he had been for what felt like hours, but now everything had changed. The doctor's voice softened for the first time. It is done. She is stable. Maya's eyes opened slightly at those words. She did not speak immediately. She could not. Her chest rose slowly as she tried to understand what was real and what was exhaustion. Is the baby? She began, her voice barely there. A nurse smiled gently. Your baby is here. Healthy and breathing. For a moment Maya did not respond. Her eyes filled slowly, not from pain, but from something far deeper. Relief. Disbelief. Exhaustion breaking into emotion she no longer had the strength to hold back. Ethan stepped closer without hesitation, but not too close. Just enough that she could see him clearly. You did it, he said quietly. Maya shook her head faintly. I do not feel like I did anything, she whispered. Ethan's gaze stayed steady. That is because you do not see what just happened, he replied. A nurse carefully adjusted something off screen, then nodded toward the warmer area. You can see your baby now if you are ready. Maya's breath caught slightly. Her entire body seemed to pause. Ethan noticed immediately. Take your time, he said. Maya closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again. I want to, she said softly. The nurse gently guided her closer, adjusting the bed slightly so she could see. Ethan moved with them, staying close but giving space. There was a brief moment where everything felt suspended again. Then Maya saw him. Her baby. Small. Fragile. Alive. A soft sound escaped her lips as her hand instinctively reached forward, trembling slightly. Oh my, she whispered, her voice breaking in a way that had nothing to do with pain. The nurse helped position the baby carefully, allowing Maya to see more clearly. Ethan stood quietly beside them. For once he said nothing. Maya stared for a long moment, her breathing uneven as tears finally fell freely. Not dramatic. Not controlled. Just real. He is here, she whispered almost to herself. Ethan nodded once. Yes, he said quietly. Maya's hand hovered slightly, afraid to touch too firmly. I was so scared, she admitted softly. Ethan's voice lowered. You still did not stop. She gave a faint, tired laugh through tears. I did not have a choice. Ethan looked at her for a moment longer than usual. You always had more strength than you believed, he said. A quiet settled again, different now. Not tense. Not uncertain. Just still. Maya finally reached out and gently touched her baby's hand. The moment was small, but it changed her entire expression. Something inside her softened completely. Ethan watched without interrupting. No phone calls. No distance. Just presence. The doctor checked the monitor one final time and nodded. Everything looks stable. We will continue observation, but this is a good outcome. Maya did not respond. She was still looking at her baby. Ethan stepped slightly back, giving her that space, but he did not leave. And in that quiet aftermath, the room that had once been filled with urgency now held something else entirely. Something fragile. Something new. The corridor outside the private recovery room felt quieter now, but it was not peaceful. It was the kind of silence that follows exhaustion, when everything has already happened and the body has not yet caught up to the truth of it. Inside, Maya Collins lay in bed with her newborn resting nearby in a warmed incubator. Her face was pale, her eyes heavy with fatigue, but they kept drifting back to the small life she could now see with her own eyes. Every breath she took felt different. Slower. More real. Ethan Caldwell stood near the window again, but this time he was not looking outside. His attention was on the room, on her, on the baby, on the quiet aftermath of everything that had just unfolded. A nurse adjusted the chart at the foot of the bed and spoke softly. Both mother and baby are stable. We will keep observation overnight, but everything looks good. Maya nodded faintly, unable to fully form words yet. Ethan's expression remained controlled, but something about his posture had softened slightly. Not visibly emotional, just no longer purely analytical. The nurse left quietly, closing the door behind her. For a few seconds, there was only the sound of the monitors and Maya's uneven breathing. Then her voice came softly. I still cannot believe this is real. Ethan turned toward her. It is real, he said simply. Maya gave a faint, tired smile that faded quickly. It feels like I am going to wake up, and it will all disappear. Ethan stepped closer, stopping near the side of her bed. You are not going to wake up from this, he replied. Maya looked at him for a long moment. You stayed the entire time, she said quietly. It was not a question. Ethan nodded once. Yes. Maya glanced toward the incubator again, her voice softer now. Why? Ethan did not answer immediately. The question lingered between them, heavier than it should have been. Finally he said, because leaving was not the correct option. Maya let out a faint breath, almost a laugh. That sounds like something you would say in a board meeting. Ethan's expression did not change, but his voice lowered slightly. It is simpler than people think, he said. Most decisions are. Maya studied him again, her eyes tired but clearer now. I do not know what I am supposed to do next, she admitted. Ethan glanced briefly toward the baby, then back at her. You recover, he said. That is the next step. Maya nodded slowly, as if that was the only answer she could currently process. A moment passed. Then the door opened again. A man in a dark suit stepped inside with controlled urgency. He paused immediately when he saw Ethan. Sir, we need to discuss the gala attendance and the board's expectations for tomorrow morning, he said carefully. Ethan did not move right away. Not now, he replied. The assistant hesitated. It is time sensitive. Ethan's tone did not rise, but it became final. I said not now. The assistant nodded quickly and stepped back out, closing the door again. Maya watched the exchange quietly. You were supposed to be somewhere important, she said. Ethan turned back toward her. It can wait. Maya frowned slightly. People like you do not usually say that. Ethan looked at her for a moment before responding. People like me usually forget what matters most, he said. The honesty in his voice made her pause. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was unexpectedly direct. The room settled again. Maya shifted slightly in bed, then glanced toward her baby. I do not even know what to call him yet, she said softly. Ethan followed her gaze. That is not urgent, he replied. Maya gave a faint nod, exhaustion pulling at her again. Everything feels unreal, she whispered. Ethan stepped a little closer, then stopped. It will feel real in time, he said. Maya closed her eyes briefly, then opened them again. You are still here, she repeated quietly. Ethan nodded once. Yes, And in that quiet hospital room, with the city outside continuing as if nothing had changed, everything inside it had already begun to shift into something neither of them fully understood yet. The night had shifted into a slower rhythm inside the private hospital wing, as if the entire world outside had been muted. Maya Collins sat propped up in bed, her body still heavy with exhaustion, her breathing finally steady after everything she had endured. The newborn lay nearby in a clear bassinet, wrapped carefully in soft hospital blankets, making small movements that seemed almost unreal to her tired eyes. Every few seconds Maya would look over, as if needing confirmation that he was still there. Still real. Ethan Caldwell stood near the window again, though his attention never truly left the room. The city lights of Chicago stretched far beyond the glass, but they felt distant now, irrelevant in comparison to what had just happened inside these walls. A nurse entered quietly, checking the monitors one final time before speaking. Everything remained stable. You and your baby are both resting well. Maya gave a small nod, too exhausted to speak more than a few words. Thank you, she said softly. The nurse smiled gently and left, closing the door behind her. Silence settled again, but it was different now. Not tense. Not urgent. Just still. Maya turned her head slightly toward Ethan. You still have not left, she said quietly. Ethan looked at her. I told you I would not. Maya gave a faint, tired smile. Most people say things like that and then leave anyway. Ethan stepped closer to the side of her bed. Most people are not dealing with this situation, he replied. Maya studied him for a moment, her expression soft but uncertain. I do not know what happens next, she admitted. Ethan did not answer immediately. His gaze briefly moved toward the baby before returning to her. Next, he said, you rest. That is all. Maya exhaled slowly. It feels strange, she whispered. Everything changed in one night. Ethan nodded once. That is how most real changes happen. A quiet moment passed. Then Maya spoke again, her voice lower. I still do not understand why you helped me. Ethan's expression remained steady. I already told you, he said. Timing matters more than explanation. Maya shook her head slightly. That is not a real answer. Ethan looked at her for a moment longer than usual. It is the only one I have right now, he said. Before Maya could respond, the door opened again. This time, two men in formal business attire entered quietly, carrying tablets and documents. They paused when they saw Ethan. One of them spoke carefully. Mr. Caldwell, we were instructed to finalize the gala attendance confirmation and review tomorrow's board presentation schedule. Ethan's attention shifted instantly. The shift was subtle but immediate, like a part of him had been pulled back toward a different world. He did not respond right away. Maya watched silently, noticing the change in his focus. The assistant stepped forward slightly. The board is expecting your full presence tomorrow morning. There are concerns about your absence tonight. Ethan finally spoke, his voice controlled but firm. Reschedule all morning obligations. The assistant hesitated. Sir, that includes the merger briefing with Westbridge Partners. Ethan did not look away from Maya. I said reschedule. The assistant paused, then nodded. Understood. The two men stepped back and left quietly, closing the door behind them. The room returned to silence once again. Maya looked at Ethan, slightly surprised. That sounded important, she said softly. Ethan turned back toward her. It was, he replied. Maya frowned faintly. You just canceled it. Yes, he said simply. Maya studied him again. Because of this? She asked, gesturing slightly toward herself and the baby. Ethan's gaze remained steady. Because priorities are not complicated when they are clear, he said. Maya did not respond immediately. Her eyes drifted toward her child again, her expression softening. I am still trying to understand all of this, she admitted. Ethan nodded once. You do not have to understand everything tonight. Maya gave a faint breath, almost a laugh. That is the first reasonable thing anyone has said all day. Ethan's expression did not change, but something in his eyes softened slightly. Then rest, he said. Maya closed her eyes briefly, her exhaustion finally catching up with her again. You are still here, she whispered. Ethan looked at her, then at the baby, then back again. Yes, he said quietly. And for the first time since the night began, neither of them needed to say anything more for the silence to feel steady instead of uncertain. The early morning light filtered softly through the hospital blinds, casting long, quiet lines across the room. Everything felt different now. Slower. Settled. Maya Collins lay in bed with her newborn resting peacefully in the bassinet beside her. Her face was still pale, her body weak from exhaustion, but her eyes stayed open longer now, no longer lost in shock, but filled with something quieter and deeper. Awareness. Reality. Ethan Caldwell stood near the window, his presence still steady, though the urgency of the night before had finally dissolved into silence. He looked less like a man managing a crisis, and more like someone simply remaining where he had chosen to stay. A nurse entered quietly, checked the monitors and offered a soft nod. Everything is stable. You are both recovering well. Maya gave a faint nod in return. Thank you, she said softly. The nurse smiled and left, closing the door behind her. Silence returned, but it was no longer heavy. It was calm. Real. Maya turned her head slightly toward Ethan. It feels strange that the world is still moving outside this room, she said quietly. Ethan glanced at her. It always does, he replied. Maya gave a faint breath that almost became a smile. I do not know what I am supposed to do now, she admitted. Ethan stepped closer, stopping near the side of her bed. You recover, he said. That is what you are supposed to do. Maya looked down toward her baby, her expression softening instantly. And after that? She asked. Ethan did not answer immediately. His gaze briefly followed hers before returning to her face. After that, he said, you decide what you want your life to be. Maya let out a quiet breath. That sounds like something people say when they do not have an answer. Ethan's expression remained calm. It is the only honest answer I can give you right now. A pause followed. Not uncomfortable, just reflective. Maya shifted slightly in bed, her voice softer now. You did not have to stay this long, she said. Ethan looked at her directly. I know. Maya studied him for a moment. Most people would have left hours ago. Most people were not here last night, Ethan replied. Maya gave a faint nod, then looked back at her baby. I still cannot believe he is real, she whispered. Ethan followed her gaze. He is real, he said. Maya smiled slightly, though her eyes remained tired. I have not even named him yet. Ethan nodded once. That will come in time. Another silence settled between them, but it felt different now. Softer. Less uncertain. Maya finally spoke again. I do not know what I am supposed to say to you, she admitted. Ethan looked at her. You do not need to say anything. Maya shook her head slightly. That feels wrong. Ethan's voice lowered slightly. Then say what is true. Maya hesitated, then exhaled slowly. Thank you, she said quietly. Ethan gave a small nod. You do not need to thank me. Maya gave a faint, tired smile. I think I do, she said. A soft knock came at the door before it opened again. A nurse stepped in briefly, smiling as she checked the baby. He is doing very well, she said gently. You can hold him again whenever you are ready. Maya's expression shifted instantly, a quiet emotion rising behind her eyes. Can I? She asked softly. The nurse nodded. Of course. Carefully, the baby was brought closer and placed into Maya's arms. She held him with a fragile kind of awe, as if still afraid he might disappear. Ethan watched from a slight distance, not interrupting, not moving closer, just observing the moment quietly. Maya looked down at her son, her voice barely above a whisper. I do not know what kind of world I can give you, she said. Ethan's gaze stayed on her for a moment longer than before. A better one than you think, he said quietly. Maya did not respond immediately. She simply held the baby closer. And for the first time since everything had begun, the silence in the room no longer felt like survival. It felt like something new beginning to exist.